I guess that bio kind of indicates just how quickly things do move on at the moment, because it's all changed since I submitted that a few weeks ago. I'm now actually head of editorial for Sift Media, and we publish a series of online communities, including HR Zone and Training Zone. I think you'll find our presence down on the show floor. A number of my colleagues are here giving sessions over the next couple of days as well. Please, I would encourage you to go along and hear what Charlie Duff and Verity Goff have to say, as they're very much at the forefront of the learning, training, and HR fields. By which I also should point out that I feel almost a bit of a fraud being here, in that I'm not at the forefront of those aspects of the learning and skills industry. What I specialise in is cloud computing and business-to-business applications, and that's kind of how this session came about, meeting up with Donald Taylor at a judging session for the Software Satisfaction Awards, which we run last year, and we got to discussing the areas in which cloud computing had made inroads and the areas in which it had yet to make inroads. And we decided that learning, skills, teaching was an area that was ripe for cloud computing, but perhaps hadn't actually reached its full fruition yet. So I think my session in particular is very much kind of horizon scanning stuff, as opposed to necessarily immediate day-to-day stuff that you're going to find at the moment. Donald asked me first and foremost to basically look at this from the point of view of explaining what cloud computing is and how it can be applied to the learning and skills industries. There's a very good reason for doing that. One is that there is no industry quite like the software industry to pursue a bandwagon. Even the fashion industry has a bit more stability about it. The software industry and the software and services industry, the next best thing is the next best thing next week or today or tomorrow, but they constantly change. Cloud computing is no different. There are far too many definitions of cloud computing, and this is warning number one for anybody looking for any form of cloud technology to support your learning or skills work. First, work out what it is that you're talking about to your vendor or to your enabler. What Microsoft says is cloud computing is not what IBM says is cloud computing, is not what HP says is cloud computing, and so on. There's a great deal of very convenient marketing abuse going on. There are an awful lot of products that last year were called online or the year before were called hosted, which are now being retrofitted to be called cloud computing. There are some very, very precise definitions of what cloud computing is, and it's not really the place here today to talk about those, but I would suggest you do go into a great deal of examination about things like multi-tenancy and single tenancy and the architecture that underlies the products or the sort of offerings that you go in for. A lot of that perhaps you think doesn't necessarily matter, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe a hosted offering is what you're looking for, but there is a very precise, pure cloud computing definition. Then if cloud computing is what you're after, then you need to look at a very, very finite number of vendors at the moment. There's a great deal of confusion in the marketplace. You know, we've been here before when we used to run all our business systems on mainframes, and then there was the move to client-server computing. There was a great deal of definitional confusion about what happened to all those mainframes. Could they become client-server front ends? Was there such a thing as pure client-server? There were also an awful lot of people who burnt themselves very, very badly on backing the wrong next best thing since the last next best thing. So some Cloud 101. Basically, you all do cloud computing. I'm sure everyone in this room has a Facebook account or a Hotmail account or a Google Mail account, or you've bought some groceries from Tesco.net, or you've booked a holiday on Expedia. That's basically cloud computing. It's not the purest form of cloud computing, but basically you're remotely accessing a service which is being provided by a third party via the internet. The internet is the important factor in all this. Once upon a time, back in the mid-90s, there was something called application service provisioning, which was effectively cloud computing for its day. It was the same basic principle. You access an application remotely using a network. The difference was, at that point, the internet was not a pervasive commodity business platform that it is today. Yeah. And those days of the ASP model, you still had to invest in your own virtual private network. There were high startup costs, there were high management costs, there were high maintenance costs. As we'll see in a moment or two, those have gone away. The internet changes everything, as the marketing cliche goes. A lot of people today will still insist that cloud computing is for the small and mid-sized enterprise. those same people will probably be unable to give you an exact definition of what a small or mid-sized enterprise actually constitutes. Again, if you ask IBM what an SME is, you'll get a very different answer to asking Oracle what an SME is. If you ask a US company what an SME is, you'll get a very different answer to asking a UK company what an SME is. Cloud computing has come, I guess, to the fore in the business space via a number of specific vertical markets. It emerged first, really, in the sort of Salesforce automation, customer relationship management space, with companies such as Salesforce.com, which is now $1 billion a year run rate company, over 10 years old. You'd never let anybody tell you that cloud computing companies are brand new startups. There are a great many of them out there that are coming up for their 10th, 11th, 12th birthdays now. It moved out of CRM into areas such as human resources, into accounting to a degree, into business intelligence increasingly, procurement, some supply chain management stuff. Some of the better-known cloud computing companies, we have Salesforce.com, which is perhaps the champion amongst the B2B space at the moment. And Salesforce.com are very interesting in terms of the public cloud and the private cloud debate, which we'll come on to in a second or two. I suspect that the likes of Salesforce.com are the type of company that are going to provide the bedrock for the learning and skills types of applications that will become coming to the fore. We have companies like Google and Amazon that we've all heard of. Amazon we think of as a book-selling company. Well, yes, of course it is. That's what it does. Let's stick to the knitting. But the platform upon which Amazon runs is also available as a public platform, and you can buy into that, and you can subscribe to its resource and build on top of it. The same with Google, much, much more than just a search engine company. And you have companies coming along like SuccessFactors, who are successful companies in the HR and talent management and learning and skills for corporate environments types of companies. SuccessFactors is really interesting as a company which is currently the biggest single enterprise deployment of cloud computing business applications, which includes a great deal of talent management and training, which is at Siemens. And they've got a fantastically 45,000 subscribers, I think it is at the moment. And they successfully kicked out SAP and SAP's HR and training applications in there. The important thing to bear in mind, though, is that cloud, for all this talk of applications, cloud is not a product. Cloud is not an application. You don't go down the IT shop and buy £0.5 of cloud any more than you used to go down and buy £0.5 of CRM. Cloud is a delivery mechanism. It's a new model. It's a way of accessing and paying for computing services and functionality. The main selling point absolutely for the last 2 years, it's cheaper. Yeah? It doesn't cost as much to stick everything up into the cloud. Now, there are hidden costs. There are things that you need to take into consideration. We'll come on to some of those in a second or two. But every single study shows that cloud computing is cheaper than the traditional method of computing. So rather than you installing disks, installing software and upgrading software and having an IT department that has to run all this, having to work with the IT department to shape any kind of software or any kind of systems that are going to support your other activities, you just start. You plug in your browser, you access it remotely, and away you go. It's easier to use. Yeah. Ironically enough, talking to a learning and training audience here, there isn't nearly as much investment that has to go into user training for cloud computing applications. If you can use Facebook, if you can use Amazon, then you can use Salesforce.com or SuccessFactors. It's more scalable, and it's got a flexibility of scalability as well. When you buy a traditional piece of software, you buy a license, you buy for 50 users. If you have 52 users, you buy for 100 users, because they're not going to let you buy one for 52. Yeah? It's 0 to 50, 50 to 100, or whatever the categorization is that they go for. With a cloud computing application, it's slightly different. You buy a subscription for 52 people. Yeah? If next month or next quarter you require 60, you scale up to 60 and you pay for 60. If it all goes horribly wrong, and then the following quarter you only need 30, then you scale down and you pay for 30. Yeah? There are contractual issues you need to think about. There are hidden traps, as there are with any contracts. But by and large, the whole point about cloud computing is you pay per drink. You pay for what you use. You don't pay for what a software vendor tells you you ought to have. There are inevitably security concerns about cloud computing. People get very worked up, especially in certain sectors, such as the financial services sector, about what happens to my data. It's being hosted remotely. Is it safe? Is it safe outside the building? Well, when was the last time a civil servant left a laptop in a pub? Yeah. Or a memory stick in the back of a cab? Back in the 1990s, we always used to write about the database industry and the database wars, and we used to say, is your data safe in an Oracle database? And really the question that was being asked was, do you trust Larry Ellison, the CEO, to look after your data for you? And if you did, then fine. Yeah? At the moment, do you trust Mark Benioff at Salesforce.com to look after your remotely accessed data? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's a personal choice. It's a horses for courses choice. However, there are now enough large-scale enterprises like Morgan Stanley that will trust their data, financial data, customer-sensitive information to be remotely accessed through cloud applications. Think back, once upon a time we were all very nervous about giving our credit card details out to buy a book on Amazon. Yeah. Prior to that, it really wasn't safe to using those ATM things with holes in the wall, were they? You know, you were bound to lose your money that way. All these things change over time. The B2B space has actually started moving properly in this direction now. There is a conversion going on. There is a kind of reassurance going on because there are now so many large enterprise examples of people doing this. But you will have to get past that security issue, that security mindset. And there's downtime issues. You know, the problem with having something which is so network dependent is if you don't have a network, you can't access your application. So you do need to be sure that you're going to be able to access the applications at all time. You need to have reliability discussions with your providers. You need to have service level agreements in place with your providers. I was looking around for some see how cloud had taken up in the sort of learning community, in the teaching and skills community. And to be honest, there's very little going on at the moment. There's an awful lot of back office stuff going on. These are just a couple of examples, which I won't go into too much detail, but Teach First is a UK example. Nobel Learning is a US one. What's interesting about this is both of those companies have used cloud to automate and to bring efficiency to their back end and to their underlying infrastructure. They're not yet using it to actually offer skills, learning packages and that sort of thing to their constituent base, but both intend to. Having proven it in the back office, having got used to the idea that cloud can be a suitable infrastructure, they're now rolling it out to the kind of front end so that their customers can touch, the people, their pupils, their students can reach out and touch them. But the basic principles of cloud work extremely well for learning. The web, the World Wide Web, and cloud democratizes learning opportunities. One of the things that the cloud offers for B2B businesses, for commercial operations, is it extends your global reach. If you're the XYZ widget company of downtown Bracknell, thanks to the cloud, thanks to the internet, thanks to the World Wide Web, you can just as easily sell to America or to France or to Germany as any major conglomerate can. It's the same with the web and with cloud and learning. Just because you're based somewhere else doesn't mean you can't access the same learning opportunities. Students who gain qualifications through online learning and teaching can come from anywhere. It's like a correspondence course, but in real time. There are still issues that remain as the barriers. Despite the fact that I said earlier, and all the cloud vendors that you talk to will say it's just about downloading a browser and away you go, it isn't. You do have infrastructure needs. You are going to need a decent laptop. You are going to need a decent network connection. You are going to need a secure infrastructure. You are going to need to probably invest in that sort of stuff if you don't have it. You need to look at your mobile devices. Do you have the appropriate mobile device to do mobile learning? Is it an iPhone? Is it a BlackBerry? What do you need? There will be infrastructure investment. There will be IT investment. You are going to also be downloading applications and modules as a student, so you need to make sure that you're not downloading a dirty great big virus with it at the same time. So you need virus filtering. There's also the problem that there is currently a total and utter lack of cloud standards, and there is no sign of them coming anytime soon. It's interesting if you look at the number of cloud standards groups that have sprung up amongst vendors. And it's also interesting when you look at the vendors who aren't taking part in those standards groups. Salesforce.com doesn't take part. Google doesn't take part. Amazon doesn't take part. Microsoft doesn't take part. All the big companies that reckon that they can set a de facto standard have no interest whatsoever in taking part in the de jure standards activity. The result of that is that all those who are never going to become the de facto standard want to establish the de jure standards at the moment. And we have reached a situation now with the cloud standards bodies that we had with the client-server standards bodies, with the mainframe standards bodies way back when, where we had the situation of standards are great because there's so many to choose from. What cloud-enabled learning does provide is a personal workspace. So you're sitting in your office at home, you're sitting on the train, you're looking at your computer, you're looking at your laptop. It is your workspace, and you can customize it and shape it according to your needs and your requirements and your specifications. So in exactly the same way as you can make your Facebook page look the way you want it to look, or your Expedia page look the way you want it to look, you can make your learning workspace look the way you want it to look. You can create a personal learning environment. There's an ability to do a long-distance one-to-one relationship between teacher and student. It reduces the need for backup. So you can download as much as you like, and once you've used it, you stick it back up into the cloud. It doesn't sit there eating up your file resource on your computer and your laptop. It removes the need for PDF downloads for that sort of thing. If you take a disk-based learning piece of software and you download it onto your laptop and then you print off pages and you print off bits of paper, all of this can now be managed in the cloud. You're also tapping into a vast data center. Although what you've got is an Apple MacBook or a Dell laptop or whatever it is you have in your home PC, you're actually tapping into a vast data center up in the sky, an enormous grid, a virtual grid, where the backup, the storage, the library, it's practically infinite. Yeah? You'll get computing resource and access to computing resource that you couldn't possibly dream of in your own home. And it increases your social interactivity. One of the problems with correspondence courses, one of the problems with old-style home learning is this sense of isolation. Well, there's absolutely no need for that whatsoever. Social media, Web 2.0, Facebook, Twitter, there's no reason for anybody ever to sit and learn alone at home. There are some limitations. Do all the participants understand internet ethics and internet behavior? We've all sent that email we regret. We've all made a joke on Facebook that nobody thought was funny. We've all twittered something that we really oughtn't have twittered. There are ethics, there are behaviors. People are writing manuals on this sort of stuff now. Does everybody understand? Do we all speak the same ethical internet language? Security, we've touched on before. When you download that module, when you download that program, when you download that document, are you downloading malware? Are you downloading viruses? Is your inbox suddenly going to become full of offers from Nigeria for lots and lots of money? The downtime problem, there's nothing much you can do about this. You are basically open to the threat of downtime. If Amazon goes down, if Google goes down, if there's a phishing attack, there's not a great deal you can do about it. Collaborative working can expose you to threats from areas that you don't actually expect. We've all had the situation where we've signed up for a service online and suddenly we discover that our inbox is full of unsolicited spam offers because we forgot to tick a box somewhere to make sure it didn't happen. The same thing can happen here. If you put yourself out into the cloud in a collaborative environment, you do risk yourself being open to targeting. And there are still some infrastructure issues, as I mentioned: no network, no cloud. But the upsides are fantastic. Online communities, social networking. You can create your own community if you're all involved in a course. If there's 12 of you all in the one module and one course worldwide, you can still have a personal relationship. You can get a great sense of community. Teachers and education authorities and trainers can also have their own communities as well, where they can discuss problems, share advice, tips, provide additional resources to one another. The use of Google Docs means that you can share your work extremely easily. So it's not a case of you type up your essay and you print it off and you post it off somewhere. You just load it up into whatever folder is appropriate on Google Docs. Away you go. And you can create your own communities, create your own groups. So if you're on a training course or if you're on a learning course and you want to set some other social group up, you do it. Things like Google Groups are extremely easy to use. There's also on Facebook increasingly a number of applications for learning. I don't propose to go down through these, but I think you'll all get the slides afterwards. But if you look these up, these are all really interesting learning applications that you can find out there on Facebook. You know, we all think of Facebook as being this sort of chitty-chatty 12-year-olds in the bedroom type social chit-chat communities. But in actual fact, there's an awful lot of companies that are spending an awful lot of time trying to work out how to commercialize and bring genuine business benefit to Facebook applications, and it's the same in the learning communities. So things like AdCourse or Books I Read or the SlideShare course feed are all extremely valuable resources, and they're all sitting out there just waiting to be exploited with a vast global community like Facebook. And then there's things that like Second Life, which if you've all been to see Avatar at the cinema, you're not all going to become blue-skinned if you use this, but the opportunities for social interaction are enormous. The increased global reach you have, the game aspect, which can be very appealing to an awful lot of people, that you plug yourself into a virtual classroom somewhere with your avatar and engage with other students and other teachers. And I guess my closing slide would be that I think we've only scratched the surface of cloud computing when it comes to learning and skills communities. Other areas, such as CRM and HR and accounting, all the kind of traditional business applications areas, have all made that move. And I think teaching, learning, skills, training are following in behind now. The basic model of cloud computing is proven in terms of it being a solid, stable, interesting mechanism for delivering services, accessing remotely. Much more is to come. And I would end with a shameless plug for our 3 websites which may relate to this if they're at all of any use to you. Training Zone, HR Zone, and Business Cloud 9, which is our cloud computing website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stuart.